San Chi Go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening around the world. Welcome to another extraordinary Globinar with two really amazing people. If you want to improve your business in 2021, these are the two people you should be speaking with. One and first, who will be kicking us off, is Joe Bockersteady, business enterprise mapping. And then Lisa David is going to take us into the analytical side of once you've got your hands around your own business. Now, how do you take the analytics and side of it and really get the most out of your business? She's with eCapital Advisors. My name is Doug Brunke. I'm the founder and CEO of Global Chamber, and I am the luckiest guy in the world because not only are our members around the world extraordinary, and we've had the most amazing run of growth that we've ever had during the last 6 to 9 months, but I get to meet extraordinary people like Joe and Lisa and work with them on an almost daily basis. And it's just fantastic. So Joe, we're going to kick off with you. We've known each other for a number of years. You call yourself partner at Business Enterprise Mapping, but you're the owner of the company. It was a firm that you purchased a while back. Actually, before Global Chamber was formed. It was something that you really felt strongly about. You've been a successful business person in the past. You had a little bit of money in your pocket and you decided to invest it in business enterprise mapping because of really an extraordinary methodology and 300 really great clients that you had. And now you've taken it over the last multiple years and really fine-tune the process. You've been able to help companies virtually through the pandemic. You're also growing significantly, and what you're going to talk about today is ideas and tips around how to get your hands around your business, including mapping. So congratulations, Joe, on your success with the company. And Joe, by the way, is probably more famous for his daughter, Amy Bockersteady, who is probably the most famous golfer in the world. And so, Joe, congratulations on that. He was just telling me that he spends a little bit of time with Amy on the golf course as well. And so he's a multitasker, working with top-notch companies around the world and the number one golfer in the world. Joe, I'll hand it off to you. Thanks for being such a longtime supporter and collaborator with Global Chamber.
Doug, thank you very much. That's quite the introduction. I appreciate it greatly. I'm going to pull up a quick PowerPoint and walk folks through sort of the idea of process mapping as a foundational element to running your business better. So my role today is just sort of lay the groundwork for what Lisa is going to talk about next. But let me tell you a little bit about our company and how we do what we do and some of the learnings that we've acquired over the years of process mapping. My own background real quick, I was a partner with PricewaterhouseCoopers in consulting. Left there, started a private equity firm, ran that for a number of years, started an angel fund, and then moved out to Phoenix. My daughter Amy has Down syndrome, and as Doug mentioned, we've had quite the run with her playing golf out here. And I joined Business Enterprise Mapping in 2013. It's a fabulous niche business. Was started in 1993 by a fellow named Don James. Don is still a partner with the firm, and Don invented the methodology that we use to map workflow in businesses. So we don't focus on industry, we focus on process. And so we have a very, very wide range of experience in different industries, in different situations with different purposes. And out of that, we really have created a standard methodology for addressing workflow in organizations. Our value proposition is very straightforward. We document workflow in your organization. We are really good at documenting large swaths of workflow quickly, capturing the important characteristics of that workflow. We identify what we call red clouds, which are the problems and opportunities that come with executing that workflow. We know from experience that about 50% of all red clouds can be addressed in 90 days without big budgets or large approvals. And so we're biased towards very quickly engaging folks to document how you do work, identify the characteristics of that work, capture the problems and opportunities that come with that work, make a difference in the first 90 days, and then put infrastructure in place for sustainable change. And so clients hire us really for a variety of reasons, but it typically comes down to the need to document and streamline and build standard process for purposes of managing growth, for purposes of automating and improving the efficiency and effectiveness of how we do the work. We often get involved when one organization acquires another and needs to integrate that organization better. We want to keep the best practice parts of what we're acquiring and integrate in to our best practice the other parts. Compliance is always a consideration when documenting workflow for a variety of regulatory bodies. And then sustainability, the difference between a good project and a great enterprise over time is taking the foundational work that we produce and continuing to improve upon it 5, 10, 15 years down the road. So you often hear about the idea of people, process, and technology as the triangle on which you execute strategy. Well, we've learned through our client efforts that process tends to overwhelm people and technology in terms of red clouds and opportunities to improve. So we capture thousands and thousands of red clouds in the work that we do. And we know from this data that about 50% of all enterprise opportunities relate to some process deficiency. Undefined process being done many ways by different groups, complexity, unclear responsibilities, excessive reviews and approvals. Lots of organizations try to solve process problems by layering on additional reviews and approvals, which tends to only make the problem worse. And so we know that about 50% lays in that foundation of not structuring a standard process and following it. Another 20% lays in the organization silos. The idea that we are dropping balls between desks, between processes, between departments, between functions. When we work with clients, very rarely do folks understand the idea of customer-supplier relationships, that they are transactional as work moves through the organization. And fundamentally, the best way to serve an external customer is to serve internal customers well along that value work stream. And then, so process rate is about 70% of all red clouds that we find in organizations. Then additionally, people are about 14, and that tends to come in training capabilities and responsibilities in those kinds of areas, sometimes resource requirements. And then tools, the IT department and additional equipment that supports the execution of a process. And then finally, environment. So we have a pretty good idea when we begin work with clients what we're going to find in terms of process quality, process maturity, and ability to execute work well. Now, think of an organization as a large puzzle, and the puzzle pieces are tasks. And so when you're documenting and improving workflow, what you're doing initially is you're documenting what puzzle pieces exist in the organization today and how well they do or don't fit together. And so when we begin work, we're looking at what are the puzzle pieces, what are the gaps, what are the missing pieces, what are the duplicative pieces, what are the disconnected pieces, how well does the puzzle line up in an overall framework. So when we think of beginning to map workflow, we're looking at process architecture. We're looking at organizing those task pieces in a way that makes sense for the organization and in a way the organization can improve. And we look in terms of 12 standard business systems. Business systems break down into standard processes. Processes break down into task, and task access knowledge, your secret sauce to execute. And so the idea of improving workflow in an organization begins with documenting and categorizing your workflow today and identifying a better way to structure that workflow to get better outcomes. And so we identify 12 standard business systems. And really the way to look at this is the flow down the middle is the value proposition business systems in the organization. You're taking something, you're making it better, and you're delivering that solution to a customer. Now we do that through sales and marketing, the customer facing systems, product and services development, procurement, operations, and post-sale support service. And so the core business systems, we call them, the 5 core business systems, are delivering the value proposition for your enterprise that creates revenues, gross margins, that ultimately provides profits. Then there are 5 resource systems in the enterprise that are managing the life cycle of assets. The finance system is managing cash, facilities is managing physical space, equipment is managing tools and equipment, people is HR managing people, and information is managing information technology. And so the 5 resource systems are acquiring and managing assets that the value proposition systems use to make money. And then on the top is the enterprise system, and on the bottom is the improvement system. So why this is important is most organizations want to dive deep down into the bottom layers of workflow without having a good understanding of context. It's very common that we'll talk to a new client who has 150 process maps, but no knowledge of how they connect or no way of aligning them for an overall business system value stream or asset lifecycle. And so aligning at each of those 5 levels is critical to building that puzzle in a way that makes the organization efficient and effective. Now, one of the first diagrams that we'll build in this journey is what we call a business system map, which identifies what processes exist in a business system. In this case, operations. This is a consumer products company that is purchasing, inventorying, and distributing products to retailers. And so in this case, you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 processes, beginning with a customer quotation and ending with customer fulfillment and invoicing. And so this is a standard beginning architecture for a logistics operation in a CPG supplier. Then this will break down into what we call a business system diagram, which is essentially an electrical diagram of how work flows between those processes. And so we're now one layer down in that workflow architecture where we're determining each of these boxes and how work flows between these boxes. You can tell this is a pretty complicated diagram. That's informative in its own right. This is reflective of a complicated set of workflows that client began with, and went to work on improving. And then one layer down is what we call the business process. So the business process is fundamentally built on what's called the SIPOC, which is supplier input, process, output, customer. And the SIPOC has a basic fundamental flow of I take something, I transform it into something better, and I deliver it to a customer. What's important about this are all of those different characteristics across the bottom. What information is that process using? Who's responsible for what level of automation is impacting that process? What resources do we need? What are the controls that are required? How do we measure performance? What are the specifications that are boundaries between our process and our customer and our supplier and our process? And then how well are we aligned across that business stream that I showed previously? And then we develop what we call playbook. We use our methodology called Paragon, and the playbook creates that process map and those additional process characteristics that provide what we would consider a foundational piece of intellectual property for the business. And so in that logistics business system that I showed earlier, you had 12 business processes. You would want to have 12 playbooks that would identify how you do work today. What are the red clouds associated with that work? What is the additional information and characteristics associated with that process? And what are we doing to improve that process? It may also include a future state map of where we're heading going forward. And so while most organizations think of process maps as a disposable tool on the way to something else, we think of workflow documentation, and mapping as a foundational element to running your business and improving it over time. So the question then is, how does your organization's workflow puzzle impact performance? Fundamentally, to improve performance, you have to improve the workflow around the business model. Processes execute strategy. And if you are looking to improve the performance, ultimately resulting in better profits, it's foundationally built in how you do work and what your opportunities to do it better. Every organization is perfectly designed to get the results it gets. If you want to get better results, you fundamentally have to look at how your business model is constructed and what we're going to do differently to generate better results. We get brilliant results from average people managing brilliant processes, while our competitors get average or worse results from brilliant people managing broken processes. What we typically find when we start work with clients is really smart people doing really smart things to overcome process deficiencies. Workarounds, processes built on the side, different tricks that allow them to overcome some of the foundational barriers that we find in the red clouds. Okay, that's it for me, Doug. I'd be happy to turn it over to Lisa to add some more interest to that idea.
Fantastic, great start. A lot of questions already regarding what you talked about, but let's shift over to Lisa. Lisa, as I mentioned earlier, is partner at eCapital Advisors. Joe is more of a golfer because of his daughter. Lisa has two daughters, and she's involved with football, and she's also had a long career in business improvement. She has an accounting and CPA background from northern Iowa. She's now based in Minneapolis, where Joe is based out of Scottsdale and Phoenix metro area. Lisa, you've been in the Scottsdale area, so undoubtedly you'll be able to connect up with Joe if you haven't already. I love the transition we're making here, where Joe's kind of set the framework for getting your hands around your business. And then the next step, of course, is collecting data points along the way and actually doing something with them. And you're so good at that. And so we thought it would be a great marriage between the two of you in concert with each other, for you now to talk a little bit about what eCapital Advisors does for your clients and around the analytics side. And there's a lot of developments in that area, so you're right on top of that. So looking forward to hearing more from you today.
Yes, thank you, Doug. Yeah, Joe and I have a similar background. So I started my career at Arthur Andersen in audit. So I spent 8 years in public accounting. And for the last 18 going on 19 years, I've been at eCapital, really taking like that mystery of technology and solutions to our business leaders, to our CFOs, to our business leaders. So it's been a fun process improvement side versus the audit side, Joe, of being the bad guy who shows up to do the audit. So it's been a fun evolution, but it really kind of pairs well with what Joe was talking about. I will just a second share my screen, get up the Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Looks
Okay.
good.
All right. So, as Doug mentioned, we really work with our customer teams on really solving data challenges, and our passion is to help them have a more empowered business model so that they're making more confident decisions with their data. Kind of like taking what Joe does, because the first foundational layer is you really do have to know what your processes are and what the data flows are so that you can make improvements in that. So we've been doing this for like 19 years. We have employees in 16 states. We continue to add dots as we go and probably serve most of North America, almost all 50 states we have customers in as well. Uniquely, our business model is based on a few different pillars. We're going to focus today on analytics, but we also have a very deep expertise in helping our customers do business modeling, forecasting, scenarios, the month-end reporting process. Obviously, it's become very, very much more important after 2020 to do like weekly cash forecasting applications, 13-week forecast, 26, and then all the different scenarios that people would like to run on their business with all the changes that are occurring in the marketplace. The second pillar is really the analytics and data pillar that we're going to spend our time on today. And that's really where we're helping our customers with either the visualization of their data, organizing their data, really getting it mapped and ingested from their source systems, external data, to really provide that advanced analytics and really be able to take decisions on that. A hot area is robotic process automation. We'll spend a little bit of time there and then tie in the analytics as well. So just to give a little bit of background on robotic process automation, it really pairs nicely with what Joe's team is doing. We talked a lot about this together. We're going to get our teams back together after this webinar. And what do we mean by RPA? And what RPA solutions are really, they integrate into your company to stimulate like a digital workforce. So basically, this looks a little familiar to Joe's slides. Like he had the whole landscape laid out in his presentation, like basically, here's data entry, here's the procedures, here's how I extract data. And then I maybe want to generate a report. I want to present the information to the exec leadership team, our treasury team, our banking arrangements. I may want to go see if I receive these payments, issue a report, and then stimulate an action. There's many areas that and as Joe mentioned, we can map a lot of different functional areas. And then if it can be mapped, chances are there's a sweet spot for automation. We want to basically automate and start, as far as like where I get started with a company, is really that, processes that have a lot of manual, repeatable processes, and it's just not adding value to the company. It's the worst hour of the employee's day, the worst 2 hours. And if really they could be used to be doing something else more analytically, we want to really liberate that process into automation. When we do that, I mean, we see a lot of benefits of robotic process automation. One of which is a huge one is improved employee morale, because I basically took away tasks that allows you to focus on more of that intelligent brain and analytical power. It increases productivity, the reliability, and then the accuracy is so high. This is just something that is the reason it spiked so high in 2020 is if everybody had to change the way we were working. We're not working from home. So maybe we're not going to go back and just repeat everything we were doing because that's the way we'd done it for 15 years. So you see this was being talked about, but now it's being talked about every day in our customer teams of really being able to add our customer teams also that are growing are able to add automation and not have to add as many employees. And again, when you have automation, you don't have sick days or HR problems either, but it really doesn't liberate our existing teams to really do more with less. And the ROI is so high. I just wanted to show you a couple examples of processes, and then we'll kind of talk briefly about the analytics. So this is just an accounts payable example, and basically it just shows, like Joe was showing, here's all the data process flow. What's interesting about this software, when you add the capability of the technology with it, is the demo is like putting your hands up, because the software runs this process for you. So it's like the demo is interesting from a world of technology, because it's really showing you this process in the interface of the software and having it just run. And the software, really, what's nice about the way the software, it's got a very nice end user interface. It shows you the errors, and then the way it's got a very elastic licensing structure. So you can start small, and basically it's licensed of number of 24 hours of software robots you need to run your processes. So you can start with a small amount of RPA licensing, and then as you deploy it across the company, you can expand the elasticity of the software. This is just another example of like new vendor creation. So this, just like Joe's process maps, and that's why we're kind of married together here today. Once we get the mapping done of the process, then you can it's really easy to add the software automation and get it through the interface. It's really easy to maintain by our customer teams. They're very enabled, and it shows you the error process, security. It covers a lot of different areas on that. And then this is kind of automating the accounts receivable automation. I just wanted to talk there on the analytics side a little bit deeper, and then we'll go into a couple customer examples. So what's really exciting is pairing automation with some of the analytics data hubs that are now available. We're able to, really have our sub-ledger insight at accounts receivable so that our customer teams are able to improve their working capital. They basically, their accounts receivable analysts are able to see all of the invoices that make up their AR balances and really laser in their focus on which invoices will give the biggest bang to, decrease the day sales outstanding and really increase. Same thing in accounts payable and then inventory levels. So we really take the automation and pair it with the analytic insight so that our customer teams can have speed to insight. I'll give you a couple examples of that are really powerful in the retail area. So we're working with Best Buy, consumer electronic company. So by adding with their finance organization, adding this analytics data platform with their existing architecture, typically a retailer would have never planned that. You would never plan your business, in their case, below like a major category level of a target, because it's just a planning system is not meant to have like SKU location day. So by partnering with their finance leaders, we were able to show them in this holiday season, basically every SKU location day down to the SKU at every level deep, to show them what store, what target did they miss. Well, then the next chapter of this is, of course, because of 2020 and all the change in like the online pick up in store, all the different models that have just really exploded and changed in CPG. You're able then as well with this analytic information at that level to start adding machine level forecasting to basically show the leadership team, here's where my low inventory is. How do I need to handle the supply chain? Also on the promotion side for retail, they were, by having this information, which products to feature at what times, because what is spiking. So working with another retailer in 2020, Duluth Trading, fun story there. They were able to show their executives every day, like on the e-com platform when their stores had to be closed. Here's what's ordering by each state. Here's the zip code that's ordering. Women's line was selling more than the men's line because women need retail therapy more during COVID than men do. And tops versus bottoms, more fabrics that are easier to wear when you're on Zoom all day. So it's just really fascinating where you can take analytics today. And another thing, having been in the industry 19 years, because this is all, the architecture is so much cleaner and simpler than it was 20 years ago. The speed of which we can have this insight is like weeks. So we were able to help Best Buy in 8 weeks develop 20 to 25 dashboards to show them all of these anomalies of their targets, their low inventory levels. I mean, that's just unprecedented timeframes considering what architecture was available to us in the last 20 previous to now. So really excited about the innovation. I get to work with the top companies out of Silicon Valley that are delivering this to their customer teams. So really fun to partner with our customers and really get at their business desires for data value and partner with them.
Sounds good. Thank you, Lisa. Really appreciate it. There was a question that Joe's already answered from his perspective, which was a little bit more focused in on the technology that they use themselves. So thank you, Joe, for already answering that. The other question that we had relates to the technology that both of you use, maybe more holistically. I know certainly Lisa Capital Advisors has a number of technology partners that you have. So could you explain a little bit about how that works? Kind of what are you bringing to the table? Who are your partners and what do they bring to the table when you work with them? And Joe, maybe after Lisa talks, talk a little bit about how your process works with the use of technology as well.
Yeah. So we get the great benefit of being able to like really technically evaluate the product, Doug, and really pick the solutions that are best for our customer success. So
Okay.
in our performance management category, which is all the business modeling and planning and monthly reporting category, our product suite is Adaptive, which is owned by Workday, finance, OneStream, and then years of legacy experience with Oracle and IBM in their planning portfolios. In the analytics space, we work with all visualization tools. So whether that be Tableau, Power BI, I mean, everything, you pick the flavor, as I call it, for the visualization side. And then one of the hottest product, that what I was describing, that ROI to Best Buy, is basically a direct data platform, pre-IPO, out of Silicon Valley. It's a company called Incorda, and it really is that modern data warehouse. So, but what's beneficial is it's got built-in predictive capabilities. So it's got built-in Python and Spark as well into the engine, and it can leverage external data. So for like Duluth Trading, I could layer in all the COVID data from Johns Hopkins at every state level, so they could start to run that trend line of their e-commerce based on their retail store analysis. But that's that product line. And then we work with data science products as well. And then from the RPA side, our top, we work with, we implement more than one solution, but our top product, we feel, from our customer experience, is Automation Anywhere, was the RPA product.
Got it. Okay. So you've got a lot of different tools in the tool chest. Joe, in your case, I saw you use the old standard Visio, which has been upgraded over the years, and so it's really an outstanding mapping tool. That's what you actually use for the mapping, and are there other technologies that you end up touching along the way? Oh, you might be.
Yeah, I got it. Sorry. Yeah, so we really use simple tools because we work with a very wide variety of client organizations, shape, sizes, people. And so our fundamental tools are Visio. We like that because it's the most flexible mapping tool that we found, and we use our own unique map design, our own unique symbols and icons and things that are what we call a Paragon library that attaches to Visio. We use Excel for the basic analysis. And so are really the strength of what we do is in the way we engage the folks doing the work to develop the deliverables, the map, the analysis, the additional information, the plans, and we want to make the tools as accessible to anybody as we possibly can. We use cloud storage and some things like that for, we're moving large amounts of data back and forth all the time, but we want to be able to walk in and work with the receiving clerk the same as we would work with the VP of product development to develop the deliverables that ultimately join the playbooks, the diagrams, et cetera. So we review this regularly, and we still like what we're using as sort of the most flexible way to reach the most folks.
Got it. That makes sense. How do you each typically engage? What is the pain point, and then who in the organization usually is the entryway in? Joe, why don't you kick that one off?
So typically it's the head of a department who's got a painful problem that they need to solve. Marketing, who just put a campaign out to the market that had a quality bust. The most common problem is I'm rapidly growing. My budget for next year is 50% more output, but I can't hire 50% more people. So how am I going to get this done? Right? There's a sponsor who has a problem, they want to solve it, and then typically there's some sort of practitioner or project manager type who looks at what we have to offer and decides that we're a great solution for that situation.
Got it. That makes sense. How about you, Lisa? What's typically the pain point, and where do you typically engage?
The pain point is one of two areas. If you look at that one pillar lane of our performance management side, it's definitely that it's being done in Excel, and it's taking too much time, and it's like too many errors, and I can't see it 17 ways. It's painful to try to do multiple versions. So Excel is really, it's taxed, and it's just too much to maintain, and make sure that the calculations, when you move from Excel to like a platform conversation, it's like the The calculations are no longer at like C5, they're at a dimensional level. So you have the peace of mind as a business leader to say, like, what if I increase price by 3%? That back solves against everything, that balance sheet, income statement, cash flow. So it's like you have that peace of mind of like basically a Rubik's cube being completely connected at any data point. So that's a pain. That's a pain typically. Secondly is like the desire of a business team that says, I need to see more. We have ERP systems, we have POS systems, we have all this stuff, but I do not have enough analytic insight to really make decisions on my promotions. We're working with a credit union and they have a bunch of credit cards, private label credit cards. Well, they were marketing to everyone, all one marketing spend, all one marketing plan. Well, once they figured out who was actually using their credit cards, they could target their marketing and actually reduce costs on marketing and have it be more tailored. So that it's really that I have a wish list that if I could see this data better, it would help me partner with the company better, and the company would have more profitability, increased margins. So it's really that wish. I can't see this. This is difficult. I need to see it more granular, and I want to see it from a top level KPI down to the penny across all transactions, and not have a management meeting where we're spending our time arguing on who has the right data or information. It's one number. So that's really where our customers, their pain lies.
I see. You've talked about several different examples, which are more on the retail side. Is that where you end up doing most of your work? Where are the hot areas for your business today? And then Joe, I'll ask you the same question.
Industries it's very broad, Doug. And I was just probably giving you stories of recent customer meetings in the last couple of days. But no, it's a lot of manufacturing, CPG, financial services. I mean, analytics is kind of based on spike industries. So if obviously we're not working with hospitality and health clubs right now because they are so negatively impacted by COVID, they can't invest. But like the grocery stores, I mean, their e-commerce world, as they describe it, advanced 3 years overnight. Like they had a 3-year plan to have like a online ordering that had like basically advanced overnight. So it's really just kind of, and then we have a lot of high growth industries, working with a company right now that does like 3D imaging, so that you can when you're ordering something big and you're doing it electronically, you can see 3D of the product. So again, just a lot of software, like that type of spike industry as well, just because of the change of the e-commerce and people ordering online. They need, the biggest thing there is that you want to like reduce the amount of returns. And so if you can reduce the returns, then that's obviously it's a platform that's very beneficial for the retailers to present their product to 3D imaging. So very broad industry perspective on analytic need.
It sounds like, though, the digital transformation and the acceleration of that, probably largely due to the pandemic, is a key driver right now for the business, because people are not, like you said, many of them may have had a 3-year plan that now they need to implement in 3 weeks or 3 months instead of the 3 years.
And I think the other thing on the digital transformation is, like, to your point, people were talking about it, but like, I'll get around to it the next 3 years or something. And it's like, it's kind of like the barrier to change kind of got torched in 2020. Like, so it's like the barrier to change of like innovation got torched. So I think it's interesting just how that has like, I'll get around to it. Now it's like, okay, I want to do this right now. You know what I mean?
Sure. No, that makes sense. When you really think about it, would half of your business be related to digital transformation changes that are going on right now, or kind of like at a macro level, what are you seeing?
That would be a very good perspective. Yes, at least 50.
Okay.
And then there's so much mergers and acquisition, which then brings about like, okay, I bought this other sister company. Now I need to be on one e-commerce platform. So again, and get the data together so that I can see, I'm working with a fun mergers and acquisition of Rawlings is the baseball company. They're known for their glove. They bought Easton, the softball side, known for their bat. So now we got to get the data together and get them one number of like, what am I selling to Dick's Sporting Goods yesterday across all my lines? Because now we're one company. So M&A is really driving a lot of it too.
Okay, which some of that is pandemic related, probably a good portion of it, right?
Right.
Interesting. And Joe, in your case, you know, the mapping piece of it, a lot of that is like, hey, we need to do something different. You know, whether it's one of the thing like digital transformation, they're evolving into something new and different, or they're going through an M&A. So, what are you seeing out there, and what's keeping your team busy?
Yeah, our what we see is very similar to what Lisa described. A real last 2-3 years, a real rush in the digital marketing area. A number of digital marketing agencies, marketing departments in large organizations, which are now digital marketing departments in large organizations. And the value stream, sort of that customer order value stream related to e-commerce, right? Very much to her point, you know, we were shipping pallets 2 years ago, and we're shipping eaches today. And we were shipping to warehouses 2 years ago, and we're shipping to residential addresses today, right? And that wreaks havoc on the business model, and as Lisa described, it compresses the need to shift strategy virtually overnight, and that begins with an understanding of what we're doing today relative to what we're going to need to do in the future, right? And so a lot in the digital marketing, a lot in that sort of value stream, order value stream, product development systems, very comparable. I got to get to market faster. And sort of one of the last things that we chuckle at a bit is organizations still want to do accounting. And what happens is all of the other red clouds created in product development, operations, logistics end up as red clouds in accounting, right? My customer data wasn't set up properly, therefore my vendor data, therefore my order gaps. And so we try to discourage clients from starting in accounting, because the first thing it's going to do is point a bunch of red clouds to other systems. We'd much rather start where the action is on the front lines, order flow, or something where the organization is adding value, and take the accounting on the back end. But there's always pressure to reduce my accounting costs, right? I want to double the size of the organization, but I want to take accounting down by 20% in the process, right?
And
so
that's so interesting, because that's like,
right?
we start with accounting because that is exactly the point that they want to
Right.
reduce. The ROI is like, if I can automate this, then why am I paying all these people? I mean, it's so funny you say
Right.
that, because it's like we start there. Like, we're always in finance for finance and accounting first, then we go
Yes,
to operations. And like, I love the operations side of it, because that's really the business model. Okay, how does this
Right.
company, like, how do they make their product? What's the analytics here? What inside? I think it's because I've been in accounting so long, but yeah, that's an interesting parallel between us, that we always start in accounting and finance.
Right.
So it's like which came first, the chicken or the egg, the
Yeah.
accounting
Exactly.
or the process?
Exactly.
You know,
Right.
so because
Right.
you've got always that conflict, right? The customer support and getting them fulfilled, and you've got, to make money at the same time. So
And accounting takes the heat. They're the one at the end of the stream that takes the heat of all the previous errors and transgressions.
Interesting. So Joe, you're starting with, let's streamline this process many times. Yeah, let's make this better.
Right.
Got it. Let's see. Any other questions? So in terms of both of you are coming at it from a different perspective and a different angle. You've got a lot of things going on right now with changes in the marketplace. It sounds like you're both keeping very busy, or your teams are keeping very busy. Both of you are primarily in the US, although you've got some international clients as well. If you take a kind of a step back and kind of look at what's happening now and what you're expecting, maybe through hopefully an ending of the pandemic over the next year or so, how do you see the markets changing and going forward? Are you going to see continued, I'm sure, continued changes in digital transformation? people catching up on that? And then what are some of the next generation problems that you expect to be seeing? Which what
I think the fascinating one on the next generational, because this has kind of been talked about a little bit, but it really had very little implementation until 2020 or 2021, is the fact that, most people took like the last 3 years of their history of actuals, Doug, and that was like the basis for the projection going forward. Well, because there's such disruption, probably to like how they go to market, so different, is history really a predictor? So I think the big thing I see and what we help our customers with is, again, very few customers had really gone to machine level forecasting where you're letting an algorithm kind of determine your forecast. It was always much a bottoms up people job until, for 20 years, it's been a bottoms up people job. And like giving that up was very hard for people to do. I see next generation, a lot more emphasis on like more of an algorithm led forecasting based on the actuals, to give you, and that would be staffing, that would be, your revenue projections. So I see that kind of starting to evolve, where that was it was aspirational before.
I see. So machine learning, artificial intelligence, those kinds of technologies coming in, kind of forget where we were last year.
At the business level. So they were already there a lot further out on the plant floor. Does that make sense? Like they were out, they were there in operations a lot more. Now I see it coming into the finance teams, the business, the chief operating officer. I see it coming into more of the executive team, business-led machine forecasting, if that kind of makes sense.
Okay. And there's certain companies that you partner with that have technologies that are able to do that?
Yep.
Fantastic. How do you see that, Joe? Is that something that you're thinking about as well?
Yeah, so building on what Lisa describes, I'll sort of lay out the business problem that I think she's addressing there. And I don't think this problem's been solved yet. And so I think this is where we'll see large change in the next couple of years. So it goes to volume, variety, cycle time, and cost, right? So the move to e-commerce, D2C, is smaller volumes, more variety, quicker, at the same price or better, right? And from a supply side, that is a very difficult model to meet, right? Supply wants larger volumes, less variety, longer times, and whatever the cost is, it is, right? And so nobody has successfully cracked that nut yet. But I think you're going to see organizations continue to press on smaller volumes, greater choice, being variety. I've got to deliver, you do have same day delivery models now at cost, but I don't know, or at price, at the same price, but I don't know the cost is there yet, right? And so the organization that can supply one of anything you want in the same day at lowest cost will win the game. And that's the pressure that I think we're going to continue to see. And that's this paradigm shift that have really given companies fits when the pandemic hit. And this emergence, as Lisa described, this overnight emergence of direct-to-consumer, e-commerce. Not only do I need to be able to deliver quickly, but I need to be able to communicate with you real time exactly where it's at in that cycle of delivery, right? So that's where we're headed, and it's exciting, right? It's an exciting time, fraught with error, but also fraught with opportunity to step out front.
So part of that is being able to be somewhat predictive in terms of what people are going to order, but it's also to be flexible, that whatever they end up ordering, to be able to be responsive to that, maybe with upcharges or whatever, depending on what the algorithms are telling you. So interesting. So that's something that's still to be determined and something that need to be worked on. And sounds like both of you have your fingers in it from working with your clients.
Well, and then taking that data and like you hear a lot of talk too, that to the next level, Joe, where you go, like I will put just a concept store in a certain, longitude, based on density of who's ordering the most e-commerce is where I'm going to put my concept store. So it's like I mean, it's just a massive transfer. I mean, that one blows my
It
mind.
is.
It's like, oh, because of all of this ordering of my product, that's where I'm going to have my flagship concept store, so people can come see it, because that's where I got my most demand. I mean, it's taking
Right.
all that data, and like that one that one really is fascinating
Right.
to me, because that's even the next chapter.
Yeah, and I'm saying that's where we're heading in the next, let's say, 5 years or less. I don't know, but it's certainly accelerated dramatically in the last 18 months, no question.
Right.
Interesting. And Joe, you and I have had this conversation about, ERP systems like SAP, which historically,
Right.
20 years ago, let's say, were very rigid in the way they approached everything. Is like, you will do it this way. And I think what each of you are talking about is really a transformation, that the market and consumers are going to be much more in charge, and the systems need to be reflective of that. And I don't think they certainly weren't that way 20 years ago. And I
Right.
doubt that. It sounds like there's a transition that still needs to evolve.
Well, Doug, in the past, process served technology. Today, the technology has to serve the process. And
That's
that is a
that's awesome.
shift, right? That I think you're going to continue to see more of that.
And where do you think we are in that spectrum? How far along are we?
Oh, I think we're midstream. I'll give you a quick funny story. We worked simultaneously with two clients that had SAP and Oracle. We were mapping one client who was switching from SAP to Oracle because they didn't like it. Value stream. We were mapping the other client that was switching from Oracle to SAP because they didn't like it, the value stream. So I would tell you the technologies, you can get there either way.
That's almost like that's a religion conversation. It's like,
Right?
it's like you can't change that. It's a religious
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah. So that's but I do think we're in mid transition, and I think the technology application to suit the process will continue to grow. Right.
Interesting. Well, great. Well, we're at the end of the hour. We've only got a few minutes left, and so what I'd love to do is just kind of go to each of you for some closing comments. These are really interesting times, and interesting both in a good and a bad way. But when things are this disrupted, it does create all sorts of opportunities. So I'm wondering if you could just each talk about some of the opportunities that you see, and how should companies be adjusting and adapting to these new times this year and the future. Joe, if you want to go first.
Yeah. So I guess what I would say is look to workflow in your business model as the foundation for the results you're getting today and the different results you want to get in the future. You're not going to hire superstars to overcome bad process. You're not going to hire technology to overcome bad process. You need to intentionally design your workflow to derive the results that you want, and then find the tools, people, technology, and support to make that happen.
Yeah, people think whoops.
Yeah, we lost you there.
Sorry. I was getting a call from someone at Global Chamber. People think that they can wave a magic wand with technology, and yet one of the things that you emphasize all the time is you got to have a process that works, right? That facilitates the use of technology. Lisa, you also, I think, feel that same way, and you're using a lot of different technology to help companies. Where should companies be, executives be, what should they be thinking about relative to some of the next steps?
I think, just to parlay onto that, one of the hard things to overcome is the cultural change of having an analytic minded organization. So we can provide them the new innovation at this level, but then it's like getting the people to start asking the questions of their day. If they could answer these questions, what could the company be, or how fast could it grow? What needle movers could be? But that's a real struggle. People are just used to doing the same thing the same way. And to get them to really, now that you have it available, to your point, to Joe's point, now, we can let the process design what insight we need to see. And now, but it's like getting the user teams, like, just to think that way. I think it's a big culture change management that it's gonna take some time.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you both. Have you ever, the two of you, ever worked between the companies yet? Have you had some collaborative efforts yet?
Oh, we're gonna have a demo. It's on our to-do.
Right.
Once we got put together, we will have it on our to-do list for sure.
Okay, great. Because I forget which meeting it was recently, Lisa, where you jumped in and you also knew Rush Weston of Aletta. You know everybody. That's awesome. And
I know, it's like all of a sudden this whole world got smaller by
Yes.
in 2020. It's interesting. I never thought I would say that, but it really has. So yeah, no, perfect.
Oh, I think part of it is, we're all in our office and we have access to so many more people, and for at least for us at Global Chamber, it feels that same way, because the people who are moving and shaking and transitioning and growing, the pool of, it's not the 100%. It's a smaller group of people that are doing that, and that's where a lot of the fun and the opportunity is. So really appreciate working with both of you. Keep growing, keep being successful. Thank you for taking the time today to share with our members your thoughts and ideas. We will have a blog post about this, and we'll have a recording up. So if you only caught part of this as a viewer, you'll be able to watch the whole thing. I definitely think it's worthwhile, especially both presentations at the beginning. This month, I was just actually counting. We have almost 40 events Global Chamber does over the 20 or so business days within February. So it's another busy month. We continue to increase the amount of opportunities for our members to connect up with each other. And we have extraordinary members, as today's program clearly illustrates. Joe Bacher-Steady and Lisa David, thank you both for your time and your expertise. And we look forward to connecting you going forward. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Yep.
Have a good rest of your week. Take care.
Yeah, thank you.